So, if you watched the Hollyoaks video yesterday, you'd know that I just said yikes about 73 times. Now, why did I say yikes? Well, because of the direction they're taking the characters Frankie and Dylan, and what Grace is now gonna be a part of in her new way to try and shake it up and become a criminal mastermind again, like her dad used to be, like she wants to be now. I was a bit worried for the future because I made the point of saying, look, a lot of storylines have started to wrap up from the time jump. Abe has wrapped up, Frankie and JJ's wrapped up, Steve's psychosis wrapped up. The only one that's still really ticking over is Mercedes' cancer. And with that being said, now it's time to introduce the new wave of storylines. The new wave of storylines that are going to carry us through, carry Hollyoaks further. And this is exactly what we've got. As in yesterday's episode, Hollyoaks was kind of exploring that Frankie and Dylan are in danger. So I will go through and I will read the article in a moment. Let me get that sorted for you. Alright, so that is sorted. Hollyoaks announces harrowing new Dylan and Frankie storyline, The Friends Are in Danger. Hollyoaks has announced a harrowing new storyline involving Dylan Ray and Frankie Osborne, which will explore criminal and sexual exploitation in young people. The soap aims to highlight two most common forms of exploitation for teenagers in the UK, as Dylan and Frankie will be groomed by a criminal gang. So this is what we're expecting, right? I mean, first, we can probably cast our minds back to Juliet and Sid, and Ella and Charlie, where they were all groomed to be a part of county lines, which involved them dealing for like a higher power as such, someone who's not going to take the rap for it because these kids are going to take the rap for it. Like, they were dealing for Victor Brothers, who was controlling them and causing a lot of problems. And the most glaring part here is it also says criminal and sexual exploitation. Now, I don't need to explain much further, but Frankie's already been through a lot in a sense of sexual exploitation and sexual abuse. You risk running her to, you risk taking the character too far and making her do stuff like her brother did. It's going to be a really messy disaster, and that's not something I want to see. I don't want to see Frankie have to go through this. And Dylan as well. Dylan, yeah, sure, he's been a bit of a nuisance, but that doesn't mean that he deserves to be groomed. And I think the worst bit as well is these characters are being set up for this. But yeah, I suppose just to wrap that one for you, yeah, it doesn't mean Dylan deserves this. He's been a bit of a shit dad, but doesn't mean he deserves to be criminally and sexually exploited. Like, ugh. But you know, we've seen Rex and Grace, who I think that's the biggest glaring bit about this storyline. Some characters need to facilitate it, and usually in this sense, you bring in new characters to do this. You bring in like a new boss, which obviously D.I. Banks is probably gonna head up this thing, but still he's making the grunts do the job. So Rex and Grace, two characters we're supposed to like, probably going to be getting the bad end of the stick here. And reasonably so. How can you support characters? Sorry, that's me making a thumbnail. How can you support characters who are happily allowing abused or neglected or struggling teenagers into a scam, into a human trafficking thing? It's absurd. I don't understand why you pick two characters who we're supposed to like, because the tonal inconsistency. Yeah, sure, theoretically, Rex wants to get out of this criminal underworld, and Grace has pulled him back in. But we're also supposed to like Rex because remember when Steve said maybe I was a bit harsh to you, then he did that happy little dance. We're not supposed to look at you and go, oh yeah, human trafficker, who's also was abusing, in a sense, sexually exploiting Hannah Ashworth. He, involved in crime, set off bombs. Like, it's still a very strange one where we're supposed to... How... I don't know. The tonal inconsistencies make it really hard to want to support these characters. Like, oh, Grace is back, and Grace is going to be Grace again. Yeah. But the issue with doing that is, usually, Grace is... It's like Warren Fox. Warren Fox did some dodgy stuff, but they don't highlight that he did some really awful stuff, and they made it in a way that it was sympathetic. Phil Mitchell done some pretty awful things, done some terrible things to people. It's not like they go, hey Phil, remember all those crimes that you've done? Remember all the lives that you've taken? It's like, well, no, that's not how it works, is it? Just not how it do. You don't draw attention to the heinous shit these characters are doing, because if you do that, you suddenly realize that, we've all got a moral compass. Can we really support these characters who are doing such awful things? And the answer is no. Viewers have already seen Rex Gallagher try to isolate Dylan from his family, give him drugs, and he has offered him the chance to live in James's old place. Meanwhile, mysterious character Kat Omari has started contacting Frankie online, and his sinister scenes in Monday's episode, the episode I did a video on, Grace Black and Rex has agreed that she'll be a suitable target, as she's still vulnerable from her brother JJ's abuse. In upcoming scenes, Dylan and Frankie will be offered a glamorous lifestyle, but they will be really lured into a dangerous world that is difficult to escape from. Over time, the pair will be asked to deal drugs on behalf of Rex, and this will lead them also being sexually exploited by the gang. Executive producer Hannah Cheers said on this storyline, it is imperative that Hollyoaks is constantly talking to young people about safeguarding issues in ways that which abuse can infiltrate young lives. The audience naturally regenerates, and the issues that young adults are vulnerable to are constantly evolving. Hollyoaks is in a unique position to shine a light on them. Without lecturing, due to the way that the show tells stories, the research that we have finds that exploitation of young people is an insidious problem and growing concern from multi-safeguarding agencies. The show has worked closely with charity Causeway to ensure the storyline is told authentically, and the plot has been informed by stories of real-life survivors. Helen Ball, CEO of Causeway, said, it has been a privilege to have advised and supported with the development of this storyline. It's such a powerful way to shine a spotlight on the reality of youth exploitation in the UK, a topic that is often misunderstood. As well as raising much needed awareness around exploitation, we hope it will build greater allyship, care, support, and understanding for those brave survivors who have experienced or are currently experiencing these awful crimes. Alright, so now, to say it from a critic, to say it from someone to say it from someone who's not judging it off some of my characters that I like are gonna get hurt. Look, I've been always suggesting that Hollyoaks needs to usher in the new storylines. With the Frankie JJ storyline ending, which was probably my favourite Hollyoaks storyline of all time, with that ending, you now need to usher in the new stories. You need to usher in the new tales that we're going to tell. And this is going to be one of them. And I think this will be a really hard watch. I still think it'll be relatively similar to the Juliet and Sid County Line storyline, but with a different destination and a different guise. But still, I am looking forward to this one as a fan. I think this storyline could do a lot of really good work. I was always getting a bit worried when they were talking about Frankie and how Frankie's, as much as you'd love for her to be able to recharge and kind of work through all the trauma, ultimately it's not going to go Frankie's way this year, which means that more suffering is on the way, which means it's immediately, it's the kind of thing like everybody hates Frankie. Why does Frankie not get a moment to shine? But then I love the character, so I'm like, don't you dare. Don't you dare hurt her. I'll fight you. I'll fight all your battles, Frankie. That's a joke. But look, Hollyoaks has proven that they can do a somewhat good job of these social issue storylines. And honestly, when Hollyoaks is a social issue, they typically go the whole way and make it a really important part of the programming. So I'm not too worried about this, and I think tonally they will nail it. And it's also putting Dylan and Frankie at the front and center once again, where we're going to be able to see the effects on all the family. Lucas, the Hayes, the Maliks, and also get to see a bit more about Grace and Rex in a way. But in terms of what you do, the one thing that people often let happen is you typically bring in a character for one storyline, and then sometimes you drop the ball and you don't really know where to go from there. But once again, this puts Frankie front and center, which is exactly where she needs to be. Even though the producers have been talking about Vicky like she's Mercedes, Frankie is the star. Frankie is the main character of Hollyoaks that you need to give good work. Because let's be honest, she can just go somewhere else and do something bigger and better. Sorry. It is just how it be. It is simply how it be. Oh, and you also get the Osborns as well. You get you Darren and Nancy Moore, which, you know, that family is probably the strongest family in Hollyoaks. So, yes, I spent the bulk of this video being outraged as a fan. Because as a fan, I don't want to see characters I like be exploited like this. And I think that's the reasonable approach. That's the smart approach. But as a viewer, as someone who kind of likes to think about the show more and like the grander picture, this storyline could be a really good one. It could be a really, really strong storyline. Because you're putting two very strong actors at the forefront of the show, and it's going to be a lot of very serious scenes in this one. And, you know, they shed light on the twin sexual abuse storyline really well. So I think we're in a safe pair of hands. And once again, I think Hollyoaks is... I know it sounds really weird, where obviously the whole thing is to educate and help learn. But in a sense, you are still taking what even is that out, Sharon? You are still taking an issue and putting it to the forefront. So it's kind of weird because you're not sensationalizing it, you're giving it an accurate depiction, but you're also still taking something from real life and proceeding to be like, and we're going to do that in our show and depict it. But obviously it is for education. And I feel like when these social issues happen, if they do it in the right way, typically they do it quite well. So yes, a lot of our favorite characters are going to be struggling very soon. But in this new era of Hollyoaks, it's going to be really interesting to see just how they decide to tackle this one. I mean, we got a bolstered cast in this. Dodger's going to be involved. We've seen that Dodger is seemingly wanting to take down Rex and his associates. Dodger going to be hot on the tail. And in the end, we will hopefully... Well, we won't get a better outcome. There'll be a lot of pain and a lot of trauma. But still, I am pretty content knowing who is going to run the story, what writer's going to do it, and what actors are going to take center stage. So yeah, there we are. What do you think about this harrowing new storyline? Tell me in the comment section down below. I've been Ash from Watching Walford. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye.